The Indigo Disc DLC has brought a lot of cool new Pokemon into the fold: Iron, Boulder, Gouging, Fire, Raging Bolt, just to name a few. But there are a lot of old Pokemon that have got some really powerful moves and some great buffs in this DLC as well. Today's video, we're going to take a quick look at a few of those Pokemon and how that's going to change prep and drafting in a lot of these Pokemon. If you guys are excited for a video like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. I've got plenty more of these coming up over the next couple of weeks as we lead into BBR season number 7. So let's take a look at the first Pokemon here. Latios here got Luster Purge buff from 70 base power to 95 base power move, and it still has the same ability to lower special defense by 1/2 of the time, so giving it essentially Seed Flare on a Psychic type. This gives Latios an additional option to spam Psychic coverage with a much better chance of actually punishing neutral walls. With about 4% extra damage and 50% to drop speed up, the number of 2-hit KO scenarios with Latios opens up a lot with Choice Scarf and Choice Spec sets, and that really puts your opponent into a position where they have to heavily rely on Dark types to switch into this Pokemon consistently. If you drop Latios in this case with the bulky fighting type like a Conkeldurr or an Okidogi, these combinations can create very difficult situations for your opponents to play into, as you can use Scarf Latios and Specs Latios and a fighting type to make some aggressive doubles and put your opponent's defenses into some really difficult positions. Setup Latios is likely still going to run Psychic or Psyshock because of the PP considerations. You only have 8 Luster Purges versus 16 Psychics or Psyshocks, but Luster Purge is really going to make up that extra damage when using it on Specs and Scarf sets. Latios also going to buff him to Mist Ball, which had the same 70 to 95 raise, but that lowers the special attack, so it gives it a more powerful Moonblast type of option. And Latios usually doesn't play the role of Choice Scarf too often, so this buff in the Lati's signature moves I think is really going to just impact Latios and give it even more potency as a Scarf and Specs sweeper in those situations. The next Pokemon we're going to talk about is Great Tusk, who gained quite a few moves, while none of them kind of hitting the same levels of Latios or the next Pokemon we're going to talk about. Give some interesting coverage to this Pokemon and add some additional considerations in your building. So outside of Terra Blast, Great Tusk really didn't have access to electric coverage, and now it finally gets an electric move in Supercell Slam. This is basically electric jump kick, 90 base power, 95% accuracy, and does 50% when you miss. So realistically, this move is not that great. It is really weakened to opposing ground types who can oftentimes be common switch-ins to Great Tusk, so that makes it really susceptible to being revenge killed when you're kind of forced to predict a 50-50 on your move to hit certain coverage types. This can be a difficult move to leverage, but it gives you a super effective move against water and flying types in unison, which is going to be important in certain matchups and something to keep an eye on. Realistically though, I think this move is probably not great. It's mostly going to have basically the threat of this move I think is going to be more impactful than the move itself in games, if that makes sense. I don't think this opens up a lot, but if there's any Pokemon that's actually going to benefit from this move, it's definitely not electric types. It's going to be a Pokemon like Great Tusk that could use the additional coverage. The next move is Temper Flare, which is basically Fire Stomping Tantrum. And with a Pokemon that really only had access to Fire Fang for fire coverage before, this is a great new move to get. Not really that much of a power boost, it's 70 base power versus 65, but 100% accuracy, and has a little bit of an extra damage output if something goes wrong. Let's say you Earthquake on a flying type, you use a move that fails, for example, you can do just that little bit extra damage, which can always be nice. But this is mainly going to be there for a more consistent fire coverage over something like Fire Fang. The last move we gained here was Throat Chop, and while you do have knockoff already, not really the most relevant move, it is something to keep in mind if you have Pokemon that are abusing sound moves, that this is now a possibility you have to prepare for. Not one that I think is super common, but one to keep in mind. So realistically, 3 slight buffs to Great Tusk. I don't think anything here really changes how you want to play Great Tusk or opens up any new combinations. Like Latios' Luster Purge kind of really helps put Scarf and Specs into some more great positions and allows you to force your opponents into really difficult prep spots. This helps improve that a little bit, but mostly just slight improvements on what was already there. Then the last Pokemon here we want to cover is Meowscarada that gained Triple Axle, and I think this might actually be the biggest buff of them all. And the reason I think it's going to be the biggest buff is this Pokemon gets to kind of play as a Weavile with grass coverage. Now that might be a little hyperbolic, to be fair. But let's think about like situations that Weavile plays in certain Pokemon that can take advantage of it. Some of the things that are common that can come in on Weavile include things like water types have really good time switching on ice type attacks, forcing Ice Crash, Triple Axle to not be that common, of a spammable move. Steel types have a decent chance. It forces Weavile to run low kick as well. These are Pokemon types that are really taken advantage of by Protean Meowscarada. The ability to run low kick still, but have the Protean boost for a stab boost, as well as having Flower Trick to attack water types. It's like Weavile, just a little bit more. Now, you do lose a little bit out on the priority. You do lose out on Ice Shard, which is great priority. You have to run Sucker Punch, which is a little bit more unreliable. But this is, I think, a massive, massive boost for this Pokemon. And with all of the new powerful options in the DLC that might have pushed this Pokemon down the pegging order a little bit, maybe later round 2, I think this Pokemon, low-key, might be one of the biggest additions that we have in this metagame in terms of moves or Pokemon. I think that the more that I think about Triple Axle and Meowscarada, the more I think that it's going to be really, really difficult for teams to play around this Pokemon, especially with Protean. Now, that being said, this Pokemon is still pretty easy to revenge kill. The defenses leave a lot to be desired, and it's going to kind of operate a little bit like Greninja still, in the same way that you're going to come in, deal a lot of damage, probably have to get a prediction or two right, but then get revenge killed. It still leaves a little bit to be desired. In that aspect, it's not as much of a takeover threat, but it's now very, very difficult to switch in on, and I think Triple Axle is a great addition, and this Pokemon might be one of the best choice users that you can pick up in the current DLC metagame. So that's all I have for today's video. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're not already, try and hit to 400 by the end of the year. Let me know what move you think was the biggest addition in the DLC. I think it's Meowscarada, but there are definitely a lot of other candidates for that, surely. That's all I have for today. I'll see you next time, and as always, have a wonderful day.